called behaving. That is called behaving nicely, not harming others. So delight that you are like that. But because in our culture, we're not really, with respect to us, with more these days, perhaps, we're not really brought up with real skills, the skill to know what's going on in our mind. We just don't get educated that way, you know. I mean, mainly we're told to behave nicely. And the Buddha also agrees the very first level of practice is exactly that. The very first level of practice in Buddhism is behave nicely, which means control the servants of your mind, which means don't kill, don't steal, don't jump on the wrong partner, don't lie. It's really practical advice. And any good human being would agree with it, whether you're Buddhist, Muslim, communist, doesn't matter. And it's really common sense. This is perfect advice, perfect advice. But the problem, so that's hard for someone like who's prepared, who vomits out whatever they feel. That's an incredibly difficult practice because you've got to harness this berserk energy, isn't it? This is not an easy job. I mean, look at the world. Now, but what about, as I'm saying, the other people, some of you, never shout, never express your negativity, never say a bad word. And like I said, this is incredible, but where's the downside of that? Not so much the downside of behaving nicely, but because we are not super familiar with our mind, that the downside comes from that, because that means you do see, the thing is, you don't express it with your mouth, but of course you will feel it in your mind. You know, you will feel it in your mind. You'll feel angry. You'll be angry in your mind. So that means the thoughts are going crazy. She this, he this, how dare this, but you don't express it. So that is, the not expressing is incredible. I can't stress that enough. It's an amazing quality. But the difference here is it's not either suppress or vomit. Not like that. This option here, the one that Buddhism is recommending, and the techniques are all about that, is to learn to pay attention to what is going on in our mind, moment by moment by moment. You know, why do you think we have to go to a therapist and spend years unpacking? Because we have suppressed it. We don't know what we have been thinking all our life. So we have suppressed it, or you've gone crazy and vomited. But especially the suppressing, especially the not knowing what you've been experiencing. Why would you have to go to a therapist and have an unpack it? Because you haven't been paying attention to it. It's really, really logical. Now, that's great that we have got those systems in our culture, that we can use kind people who have, you know, who will listen to you and give you the courage and the permission to dare to notice your angry thoughts, but you have suppressed them all your life. So that's our problem. Now, and then we have to look at, I mean, there's so many ways, so many discussions just from this point. First, we can start, not first, later, we can look at, why do you suppress? This is a really good point. Why do we suppress what we feel? Why are we so scared of it? Why are we terrified of unhappy thoughts, angry thoughts? We get guilty, right? So all this is so fascinating to unpack. Let's look at that right now. You see, the Buddhist analysis, like we've been talking, and so I ever talk about, you know, is the mind. In the mind, we've got these neurotic states of mind, and the two main ones in day-to-day, and the main two from which all the others come, attachment and aversion. I mean, again, like I say, on the face of it, taking the Western analysis, comparing it, it sounds like a joke. It sounds like so simplistic and ridiculous. What do you mean attachment and aversion are your main problems? Don't be ridiculous, you know. We make it so much more complicated, but this is essentially Buddhist analysis. So if anger, and this is what, you know, it's important to say, it is the response, if aversion in the mind is the response to an attachment in the mind, doesn't get what it wants, then to really understand anger, we have to understand attachment. So to understand patience, we have to understand the opposite, which is anger. To understand anger, we have to understand what underpins it, which is attachment. This is the analysis, and it's incredibly beneficial to do it. This is not the modern analysis of the mind. It is not the neuroscientific analysis of the mind. It's completely different. But this is the Buddhist one. And because it's 2,500 years old, doesn't mean it's old-fashioned, you know. It's either valid or it's not. It either works or it doesn't. So what's underlying aversion, which is that, so what's aversion? What's anger? It's critical thoughts, isn't it? Look at that. How ugly that is. Who does she think she is? What do you mean by that? Don't you dare do that to me. It is ugly. It is horrible. It's criticism. It's what we call criticism, also called judgment. And that's called anger. That's what anger is. It might not sound angry. That's why our problem in our culture, we think anger is when you shout and yell. But a person could be perfectly behaved, not even raise their voice ever, but have a really angry mind. That's the point we have to get to see. So because we all have got attachment, we necessarily have aversion. You can't not have it. It depends a question of degree, that's all. That's all. So why is it we suppress? Or why is it we forget? Or why is it, why is it at the moment, as a little girl, as a big girl, as an old lady, whatever it is, why is it, especially as a little girl, when we're brought up with mummy and daddy, when we're a little girl, and you'll say you're kind of well-behaved girl, you're a little girl, and then something happens, and then your aversion arises in your mind, anger arises in your mind, because attachment just didn't get what it wanted, like your sister was mean to you, like your father shouted at you. Let's just say something simple. There's a shock in the mind, because every time we get every time we get insulted or hurt, there's a shock, which is the I having a panic attack. And then attachment, just then you see attachment is this default, it's default, and it's an assumption. The deepest assumption of attachment, it's got multifaceted, as I always talk. The deepest assumption of attachment here is to only get nice things. So this attachment is, as a little girl, as a bigger person, it's an assumption every second, every day, of every moment of the day, every time, is to always just get nice things. So when we see daddy, we only want to hear nice things. When we see mummy, we want to say nice things. When we eat the food, it's got to be the nice food. When we hear sounds, it's got to be nice sounds. When we walk out on the street, we've got to be nice, pleasant things. Attachment only wants nice things, only wants pleasant experiences. Attachment, and it's a very wanting nice things in general is perfect, but attachment is fragile junkie in us that can't cope with unnice things. This is really what it is, and this is second by second by second by second, people. So the particular attachment here, especially why we suppress when bad things happen, when daddy shouts, why we suppress our response, because aversion did arise, panic did arise, but then instantaneously, because you're a good girl, you'd be terrified to say something because you don't want to be criticized. He just already criticized you, and you don't want to be seen as a bad girl. So guilt comes up, guilt. I'm a bad person. I can't do that. So then, it's more complex than this, but if you're trying to think of it simply, you're walking through life as a little girl, you're trying to be a good girl, and that means you're wanting mummy and daddy to praise you all the time, because that's the only way you're going to know you're a good girl. You want to be seen as a good girl, and this is the tragedy of attachment. We don't know that we are already lovely girls. We assume, having ego grasping, we assume we're like a half a person, and so we have this feeling of dissatisfaction. So we need mummy and daddy, we need the school teachers and the people next door, and our sisters and brothers and aunties and uncles and grandmas. We're constantly hungrily needing them to give us a nice feedback. We're looking hungrily at the outside world every second. This attachment causes us to do this, wanting only nice words, praise, hearing nice words, being given what I want, nice experiences. This is what attachment's doing all the time, and it's a default assumption. And why? Is because we already think we're creeps. The irony of ego is we think we're nothing. So we're hungrily wanting this good feedback from the outside world. That's attachment, the deepest attachment, the most primordial. Everybody has it, but some of us more than others. So that's driving us as we're a little girl, and you're a nice girl. You're a good girl. You're mummy's little helper. Nothing wrong. But this attachment's fierce. So when daddy shouts at you, it's shocking to you. It's a big shock. Aversion arises, shock, and then you suddenly get hurt and you're freaking out, but you would never dare express it. So what do? You push it behind. You suppress it. You sit on top of it. That's what trauma is, people. Built up of years and years of suppressing what the hell is going on in our little minds, second by second by second. And we're not given tools like this. Buddha's now teaching us. This is his main skill. Why we have to sit there, do 5 minutes of mindfulness, not to mention 1 hour, is so that we can learn to hear what the hell is going on in this crazy mind of ours. I mean, even in Western psychology, they say we have like 1,000 thoughts a second. 1,000 people would agree. There's a lot to get to know there. Oh my gosh. So there we are, born with this ego grasping, the root delusion that assumes a separate, lonely, bereft, concrete, set in stone me. That gives rise to this emotional hunger called attachment, which brings the energy of dissatisfaction. I don't have enough. I am not enough. So therefore, this massively primordial attachment of wanting to be seen as a nice girl, which means we are hungry for feedback all the time. Driving the car, even just the car behind you, just toots their horn or honks their horn in America. We toot our horn in England and Australia. Much more polite, isn't it? Toot. And then we have a panic attack. You can't see this person. They're a total stranger, but you freak out on the road because the person dared to say they don't like you. Look how fragile we are. We can't even cope with a stranger tooting their horn. I mean, really, no wonder we're suffering. So this is coming from ego grasping, the root delusion. That gives rise to this sense of separateness and concrete. And the irony of ego is that therefore I'm nothing. Therefore we have this emotional hunger to be seen and approved of by others, because that tells us I must be okay. We don't have enough courage to know that we're okay. Buddha's telling us we are already okay, and we can become even more okay. And it's up to us to approve of ourselves. But we don't know how to do that, so we rely upon mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, and everybody else on the planet to approve of me. And that's the hunger in us all the time. So I had that too. I was a naughty girl. I'd shout and yell and scream and kick, but I also still wanted to be approved of. But the quiet ones, the ones who suppress. And of course, we're all suppressing. Who has the capability to notice 1,000 thoughts a second? We don't have that skill. We can learn it. Buddhist skills are so unbelievable. So we've got years and years and years, not to mention lifetimes, of suppressed emotions, suppressed. And then we continue throughout our life suppressing all those things, living in denial because we can't handle them, trying to be a nice person, trying to get approval again all the time up to when we're 97. And we finally might then decide to look at our minds, Are we communicating? It's a different analysis. This is Buddha's analysis in my words. So that's why it maybe is, if we don't know how to do it ourselves, it's good to have someone to talk to. You need a person whom you can trust, like call that a therapist, who you can trust enough to be a sounding board for you. So for you to uncover what the hell's going on inside. If you need a safe place to do that. Don't just vomit on your husband, please. That's not cool. Go find a therapist and vomit there. That's okay. But the reason to go is not just to blame your husband, but it's to unpack and unravel what you think and feel. If you can do it yourself, amazing. That's what Buddhist practice is. Be your own therapist, as Lama Zopa puts it. So back to patience. When you're a good little girl who never expressed your anger, that's not patience. That's passive aggression. And then that's denial, suppression. But then you've got passive aggression. That's another very vivid way that aversion manifests, certainly in some people's relationships. As cold as ice, no shouting, but so much aggression between each other, so much aversion. It's a wonderful phrase, passive aggression. It's a horrible state of mind, because that person would never admit that they're angry, So we make it so complex because we don't see our own minds, So patience, if you are the kind of person, this is an interesting point, person like me who did not have patience, I would just vomit out everything I ever thought, and I always prided myself on that. Oh, aren't I an honest person, Yeah, there can be a really good quality to that. There can be the good side to being very straightforward, very honest. There can be, and that's fine. But the negative side is when I vomited out, I'd hurt people. I hurt so many people. At least and then the good side for you, if you suppress, is you don't hurt people with your mouth. So that's good. So don't throw that out. But now we have to learn. So for me, your practicing of patience is a different practice. It's got to be just the mental one, but other practices as well, not to suppress. Whereas for mine, for people like me who are volatile, practicing patience is a very vivid one. Just you do the first level of practice, zip your lip and keep your hands to yourself. That's intense, but not by suppressing. It's got to be done consciously. You've got to make a conscious decision in your practice and your meditation. You've got to make a conscious decision. And all of us, I mean, especially with family and friends, we have so much uncontrolled speech. Most of us, I'd say, not everybody. But so one of the most powerful practices, and it's a very simple practice, don't make it complicated. When you do your practice at the end of the day, let's say you do your purification practice, and you make a decision. You know who you're going to be seeing tomorrow. You know you're going to be in your grandma's house or your sister's house. You know what the dangers are, that you make a powerful decision. Tomorrow, I will not say one negative word. Even if we think we're not angry people, we're going to criticize politicians. We're going to criticize who we read about in our iPad. We're going to criticize people in a movie, on the television. We're always finding fault, which is anger. Can sound like polite and intelligent, but it's anger. It's anger. So you make a decision. This is the very first level of patience. You make a decision not to say one negative word. And I tell you, if you can even do this much, it is a tremendous practice. It's it'll transform your relationships, Then, of course, that's a conscious decision. You can't just suppress. You're not suppressing. You're consciously deciding not to say something, not just suppressing what you feel and then going crazy, suppressing your words, but then screaming and yelling in your head. Because then the next practice, once you can control your speech, is then you work on your mind. They always say, when you're with others, you watch your behavior, you watch your body and speech. When you're on your own, that's the time to work on your mind. That's your practice. So in other words, not saying bad words isn't suppression. Not saying bad words is a conscious, intentional decision. And when you're in charge of it, the experience is completely different because it's conscious. It's conscious, It's so powerful. So another whole way of talking about patience, which is how they talk about it, especially in the more advanced levels in the Mahayana path, and you've got to have some practice to see it this way, to do it this way, is, you don't just don't say the word and be careful and then deal with your mind later, deal with your upset later. That's already a good start. But the next level of practice, when you're really familiar with not saying the bad words, controlling your behavior, the next level of practice, especially when you're working on your mind, is that you actually change your whole, this is really also based on emptiness. You paint a new picture of the thing. So the first step is you greet the problem. This is a whole nother level of practice. This is in the level of practice within the Mahayana path. It's called transforming problems into happiness. It's a more sophisticated level, very simply. And the ability to do this implies lots and lots of the earlier work of controlling your body, your speech, and your mind. So this is very much a part of the Mahayana one, where you're really working radically with your mind, So how would it look like then? Start with the simplest examples. Forget even about human beings. You go out for a cafe latte and a piece of cake with your friend, and this is one for me, for example. I like my cafe latte exactly as I like it, double or triple shots, ristretto, whole milk, 180 degrees minimum. This is in America, you call it that, Fahrenheit. And it's got to be exactly as I like it. That's how if I make my own, that's how I do it. So of course I'll ask for that. I'll ask for that. I think I was asking for something. So of course, then I notice mostly people when they make coffee, the way I put it is they're scared to make it too hot. They're just nervous if it starts getting hot, Oh, I've made it hot, But I say to them, make it hot. And then I say, and then make it hotter, please. But some people do, and most people don't. It's okay. I'm just talking. So my practice would be very simple. Ask what you want, no problem. And then when I get the coffee and I taste it and I know it is not 180 degrees, my practice that second that my attachment isn't getting what it wants, that second is to see it differently. See it differently. Very nice coffee, and accept it. That's a tiny example of practicing patience. You don't just put up with it. You don't just not say something to the barista. You actually see it as good. You greet it. So why is that a good thing to do? Because you just miraculously put an atomic bomb under attachment and aversion. It's a powerful practice at this level. It's a powerful practice because you instantaneously put a bomb under anger. You had, and your attachment, because attachment wants what you want and aversion when you don't get it. So when I didn't get what my attachment wants, and then that second, it's delicious coffee and I enjoy it. I make a decision. You've got to make a decision. This is good coffee and I'll enjoy it. So you could argue there's nothing wrong with saying, could you please make it hotter? There's nothing wrong with that, with a kind mind, not with anger. But it's a good practice. It's a good practice. It's a small baby example. Of course, it gets more difficult when it comes to people. So the next more difficult would be you come down from your practice and you're in the kitchen and your hubby's there and he's slurping his coffee. I mean, I use a tiny example, but it's more intense than the coffee at the shop because it's your bloody husband, isn't it? Slurping his coffee. And I remember reading in the New York Times recently about how noises that humans make, like when they drink their tea or sniff or cough, can make people completely want to murder each other. Somehow there's an intensity about those kinds of sounds, isn't it? Do you understand? We all know this, I think. I mean, we all know this. It's a far more, a slurping of a coffee can make people completely crazy, It's very interesting. So that's a more intense practice, but it's exactly the same. You catch your mind, straight away you catch it, aversion. You say, how dare he knows why can't he drink his coffee quietly? He knows I don't like it, whatever. And you completely change your thoughts. Not only do you not say the words, you change your thoughts. You change it from aversion to, like, you've got to argue with this, so we've got to practice it. It's going to take time. It's all right, Robina. He's a human being. He's allowed to slurp his coffee. It's just the way you label it. It's not really existing like that at all. It's just your annoyance. It's your own anger interpreting it. You give yourself a talk. You talk yourself through it. That's how you change your interpretation of something. I mean, examples all the time people write, and I hear, people talk about one example, for example, is, people who, let's say, take, like say your old grandfather lives with you, or your father lives with you. Your old father's old and cranky and sick and needs your help, and you've got to spend money on him. You might love your grandpa or your father, but you feel done upon, you feel put upon, you feel anger because he expects you to take care of him, or whatever. We all have this. We all have this with our family, especially. That's a huge aversion arising to this person. You feel insulted, you feel offended. How dare they? Who do they think they are? There's aversion in the mind all the time. So one is, don't say the words, and that's pretty admirable. If you can control your words, at least you don't harm other people. I can't stress how amazingly powerful that is as a practice. And if you can do that, that's incredible already. But now the work has to start on the mind, and this is where it gets really intense, really difficult. And this is so almost every time, whether it's any situation you see where you've got some choices, you're at a job that you hate, you're in a relationship you can't stand, you've got your mother there, your father, and you feel like we feel like we're locked in this, we feel like we've got no choice. This is the craziness. This is how we suffer so badly in our lives, isn't it? 1,000 variations of this. But to be really brutal about it, we've only really ever got two choices. We've only really ever got two choices. One, you leave the relationship. Husband, mother, sister, friend, boss, you leave the job. Now, if you really, really, really see it as not possible to do that, but actually, sometimes it always is, but we're too scared to make that decision. Oh, no, I can't get another job. I won't get another job. No, it's not possible. No, it's not possible. I can't get another job. I'll never get another job. It's not possible. I cannot leave this job. for example. Then you say to yourself, well, you know, what's the other option? Well, Robina, honey child, the other option is I change my mind. Then also I'll say, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. He's an evil boss, horrible job. I can't change my mind and I can't change the job. That's how we live our lives, totally paralyzed, not feeling we have any choice to do anything. That's why we go crazy. So the tough choice is the heavy, intense one. If you do decide rationally, it is not appropriate to leave this job at the moment, and that could be perfectly reasonable, but you got to do it out of fear, then you're left with one option. Change your mind. And this is the essence of what Buddhist practice is, finally. That's why it's so intense. It's like outrageous. It seems impossible. Why? Because when you have anger, say, in that job, and even the person is mean, the boss is mean, the boss doesn't pay you well. That's a fact. These are facts. But the anger is this added interpretation on top of those facts. We assume I am angry naturally because he doesn't pay me. I am angry naturally because he's mean. No, anger is an extra on top interpretation of already the bad facts, that he is mean and he doesn't pay you well. That's a fact that you can prove. But the miracle is when we start to see, we can learn to reinterpret that situation. That's the practice. And then why the transforming problems is because it's by reinterpreting, not just thinking, well, I'll put up with it, which is passive aggression, and continue to be miserable, which is what we think we should do. No, you actually change the way you think about the job. You stop thinking angrily about the job. You stop interpreting it with negative thoughts. You start to see from the point of view of practice that this situation is grist for your mill to help you give up attachment, give up anger, and become a powerful, wise, more content, fulfilled person, and therefore more loving and more compassionate. So it's an outrageous level of practice, but it is possible. But it's one step at a time. It's one step at a time. It's one step at a time, you know. So now you can ask me some questions. Any questions? Any or question whatsoever? Eileen, have a question. Come on, Eileen. You have a question. Eileen's good for questions. Come on, Eileen. And Alona is good for questions. Come on. We're going to rely on you two to start asking some questions. Come on. Yes, Eileen.
So the bottom line, though, Robina, would be whether you're raging or you're suppressing whatever you're doing, it's because your sense of self is being triggered, right? In other words.
Okay, well, that's, if we go layer by layer, that's the root delusion. That's right. The key, primordial, deepest delusion, the assumption of an intrinsic, concrete, definite me. You with me? That's the deep delusion. But in between that and of anger, there's the one called attachment. So it's really good to get hold of the different levels and attack each one. So yes, but the answer is yes, that's true. But the better way to put it is you're angry because it's your attachment isn't getting what it wants. This little hungry person in there who always wants nice. And the attachment is there because of the root delusion. That's the hierarchy. That's the analysis. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
So yes, exactly.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, Su Young. Talk to me.
Hi, Robina.
Yes.
So I have a question. I have a very difficult situation with my sister.
Yes.
And my sister is the one person in the whole world who loves me the most.
Really?
And she wants,
oh my
it's
God.
true. And she wants to help me. She wants to help me so much.
Yeah.
But I have tremendous aversion to her.
Oh my God.
I realize some of it is because of a sense of shame of who she is, because she can be emotionally very unstable. And I realized that part of it is my own aversion to her.
Sure,
it's
exactly.
not about her, it's about me,
Yeah, exactly.
about my feelings for her. I mean, I do love her dearly, but it's hard
Exactly.
sometimes.
Exactly. I
So
hear you very, very well. Has it been like that all? Because somehow family is very strong karmic connection, like strong history from past lives, and then we come back together again. Has it always been like that? Your history with each other has always been that way since you're kids?
So basically, I have, for the most of my life, I have tried to run away from my family, and now it's only my sister and I. Our parents are deceased,
I see.
and so
So how, so,
yeah.
okay, without trying to be, I don't know, don't necessarily want you to be too personal, but how does it manifest day to day in the way that it gives you a problem? How does it manifest for you to make it your practice? In what kind of, does she want to come and live with you? Does she ring you every day? Does she, I mean, how does it manifest?
So she, like, so sometimes when she calls me, I don't want to answer the phone.
I see. Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
want to talk to her,
Yes.
and and um, and so I am trying. So I realize that she's my family, and that I do love her,
Yes.
but I can't keep pushing her away.
No.
So
Right.
that's the difficulty of my practice, to
But so what
accept
I'm,
her.
okay, is no, that I really hear it. But so your response has to be coming from some pressure from her. So from her side, she rings you every day. She wants to come and live with you. I mean, what's from her side? What's coming? Is it regular? Is it once a year, every day, every hour? How much is coming from her side? From what she,
Well, it's yeah, it's not every day, but she wants to talk to me, she wants to help me, she wants to make decisions for my life.
oh my
And
God,
so
she's an older sister. She's an older
I'm sorry,
sister. She's an
older
older
sister,
sister.
yeah.
So she
And
wants to,
so
yeah, that's okay. Then this is already, so then, yeah, so this is where on the one hand, you got to want, as you said, you want to try and work with, but on the other hand, it's really, you need to develop the wisdom to try really set up the way say it in the West is to set up boundaries, because obviously her attachment is massive, and she also does love you, but she's mixing it with her attachment. And because she's an older sister, she's like your mother, so she sort of feels it's her right to stick her nose into your life, to tell you what to do. That you have to really find a way to stop. That's an important one. So you've got to learn the wisdom to be very clear, not letting her move into that part, but at the same time keep distance, but show kindness and gratitude. And that is how you will make it a lot better. Because what happens, perhaps, and tell me if I'm wrong, you sort of allow her in, and she shows all this need to run your life and make decisions, and that's what's overwhelming you. That part is what overwhelming. But if you can feel in yourself some courage and power to withstand all that, and to distinguish between her attachment and her manipulating you, and distinguish between that and her simply loving you. Are you seeing my point, Young?
yes, totally. Yeah, it's hard because yeah. So so it's hard because recently she made a decision to give me something that I didn't want, and I told her 10 times, and
Yeah.
she kept insisting,
Yes.
and I told her I cannot accept this,
Right.
because and anyway, so yeah, I don't want her to be worried about me. I don't want her to be unhappy because of what she thinks is going on with my life, but I also need to um, so basically, what I'm saying is, I need to keep some distance from her, but I also don't want to push her away the
No,
way
no.
I used to, the way I used to, which was totally like cut her off
Yeah,
entirely,
exactly. You're absolutely right. So I think this is where, so in the end, did you accept this thing that she gave you?
No, I did not. I
Okay,
did
so they're
not.
the kind of things I think you should. So she won't. Yeah. So that's so if I'm suggesting that the more you work on your own mind and get very clear, and learn not to be susceptible, not to be vulnerable, not to be victimized by her sticking her nose into your life. It's just like a mother. If you become vulnerable to that, that's what makes you crazy. But if you can be very firm, and she can dance and yell and give you this and want to do this, but you just say, thank you very much. It's like, it has to become like water off a duck's back for you. you, then you will feel a lot better, and you will be able to show her love, but you won't feel overwhelmed by all this pressure from her. That's your practice, to become more clear in yourself and be and really not to be constantly saying, don't give me that, leave me alone, don't tell me what to do. None of that. Let her do what she likes, but you can be very clear in your own mind and it won't touch you. That's your practice. Then it won't be so much aversion.
Right. Thank you. Right. No, you're right. It's just I just want to add that the one part that I'm worried about right now is that she has become very sad and depressed because I refused the gift, you know.
That's
and
right. Let her be. No, Riz too young. It doesn't matter. This is not being rude now. You've got to realize, this is where we have to be so wise. You have got to realize that her suffering is because of her attachment and her anger and her fears and her low self-esteem and all her own delusions. They are the cause of her suffering. So all you can do is show her love, show her kindness, say kind words, and maybe, you know, and then, but she has to, you can't make her happy. You could go live in the same house and you could talk to her 24 hours a day. She still won't be happy because attachment can never get what it wants. So she is suffering because of her own attachment. So you've got to learn to become indifferent to her attachment, allow her her own suffering. You can't make it go away, but just say loving words and kind words to her, but you be firm. Don't have to give her lectures. Don't give me this. Don't say that. Keep away. You don't say any of that. So even you let her give you gifts, but you put them in the bin or something. Don't have an argument. Let her do what she likes, but you can become very clear and stable in yourself and not be affected by it. That's what I'm trying to say. In other words, what we want, when someone's all over us and demanding things like our mum or something, we keep wanting her to be different. You have to stop wanting her to be different, Su Yang. Let her be exactly as she is. The work is in your mind. And when you are clearer and stronger and less vulnerable to her misery, you'll feel a lot better. Do you understand me? All right, good. This is a very typical problem, very classic one. Hello, Sophia and Christoph. Talk to me.
Hello, Venerable. It's so good to see you.
Yes.
Venerable, my question is, how do I train my mind to basically to let go of this need for approval?
Yeah.
A couple of members in my family that I feel continuously rejected by, and I don't blurt out things, thankfully. And I'm working with my mind to know that it's in me. The feelings of hurt and rejection are within me. But I tend then to not have any relation with those people who are family members. And I feel kind of strange about the whole situation.
I understand, darling. I mean, it's so, this is, I mean, whether it's, you know, Chuyang's example or yours, they're both a variation on the same theme. In family, it's always intense. And it's either, you know, you've got a person all over you attached to you, or you have a person who's mean to you. I mean, it's either way, and we suffer whatever it is, you know. So of course you understand it very well, but you've got to also understand, Sophia, that attachment and reputation, is the way they call it, is actually incredibly subtle. It's the deepest one, the hardest one to go. It's easier to give up attachment to sex, drugs, and rock and roll and money and everything, but to give up this one is very close to the way ego is. It's really quite hard. So, sweetheart, just do your best. See it, and all the time just, because when we realize, okay, when we can hear the story of what you're yearning to be approved of them by them, because that's what we need to make ourselves feel like a valid person. It's very deep. So just keep reminding yourself. You have to, all you can do is argue with it every time it happens. It's okay, sweetheart, I'm okay. I have to learn to validate myself, my own good qualities. Whether they see it or not is not got nothing to do with me. All we can do is argue with it as simply as we can, a little bit every time. Slowly, slowly we begin to heal it. You know, it's not going to go every night. It's not magic. It's slow one. So just keep working at it. And is it a big deal in your life? Is it always there and you talk about it to your other friends and everything?
I make it a point to not talk about it with people, just not to continue stories.
Perfect. That's a very powerful. Of course it is.
Yes, and I've reduced the conversation in my mind. So I've to forgiveness meditation and also sending metta and good thoughts.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, how do I, so for the last 8 months, I have not had contact with them just to help myself kind of get a handle of myself. But I feel maybe I should slowly reconnect and, you know.
Okay, so you mean you've made the decision to cut off, have you?
Yes, 8 months ago, I decided I can't handle it. I need to take care of my own mind, understand what's happening with me, because
Sure.
because it's piling up more and more.
Yes.
But now I
exactly.
feel, yes.
So then, but okay. So just a little bit more background though, it's helpful. Are these people who live next door? They live in another country? You would only ever have contact once a year anyway? I mean, give us a bit more scenario.
Yeah, they're actually my parents-in-law, and they live across the pond. And this is my husband, by the way.
Okay.
So it's his parents. And
so that's pretty close then. It's pretty intense. Well, then how does your husband, I mean, obviously you're talking about in front of him, so he's been supportive of you. He's trying to, but is it,
Yeah.
I mean, is it, he can talk for himself, but is that part of the issue that is a problem for him as well? Is it difficult for him?
You can speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's primarily the issue that, you know, for me, I grew up with the way my parents are. And so I was always told by my friends or so, like, hey, your parents are such and such. And I was like, really? They're just normal to me. And, but, you know, with all of that,
Of course,
I understand that,
yeah.
you know,
so now I understand this, Sophia. This, I think, makes a big difference. If it were like your sisters in another country or an ex-girlfriend from school, but this is something very different because it's your husband's family. And obviously, for everybody's sake, it would be easier if you did have contact, wouldn't it? I mean, going to family gatherings. But I think now, I mean, obviously, they obviously know you've cut off purposely, right? They're very aware of this, aren't they? That you, why? I mean, you know, if Christoph goes to see them and you don't go, it's fairly evident. So maybe you just change and don't discuss it and just turn up at the next family event and just learn to keep working on your mind and just try to just be normal again. Of course, it's very good. You've been so wise to work on your mind. You're doing so well. And those meditations, and you try to do you understand it. So just learn, try to be normal again, and then don't talk about it and just start appearing at family things or whatever the next event would be. No discussion, no explanation. Hello, how are you? Be polite, talk nice things. And the other thing is you're saying you do forgiveness and all those ones. That's fine. But don't forget, the other one is to remember that their approval of you has got nothing to do with who you are. That's the way to put it. We all, because we're craving approval, we feel because they think I'm a creep, I must be a creep. Don't be ridiculous. You want to really know logically that everybody's view, including your husband's view of you, does not necessarily define who you are. That's why I love this saying, we have to become our own person. And then whatever love Christoph gives you, you know, will be healthy love. And whatever you get, and if you don't get any love from these people, let's say, it won't matter to you because you know you are your own person. Remember that component. Forgiveness is good, but this is a fundamental one. So I think just start acting like normal again. Turn up at the next family event, invite them, whatever you do with each other, but don't have to discuss it. You just try, when you do that, what you got to make a decision. Let's say you're going to go for dinner. You're going to be there for 2 hours. You decide in advance, they are mine for 2 hours. No, sorry, I am there for them. You just behave nicely, keep your mouth shut. Don't say mean words, behave, don't respond to their meanness. Just be a nice, kind, respectful, you know, whatever you call daughter-in-law. Practice behaving nicely and be kind and thank them and be polite and do not buy into their unhappy rubbish. Do you see? You can do that. And Christoph supports you. That's a really good thing. But you're doing really well, Sophia. But remember, you're not who people think you are. We all have to know that. This is a very powerful way to put it. Then on top of that, love, compassion, forgiveness, and all the rest. Yes, for sure. You understand, darling?
Yes.
Good. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, sweetheart. Who else would like to say something? Nobody. Anyone else? Talk to me, please. They're very good points. These are such good, and this is everybody's life. This is exactly the stuff, you know. This is the stuff that we're dealing with, every one of us in one way or another.
Robina,
Yes, who's there?
it's Betty.
Hello, Betty, darling.
I have a twin sister,
Yes.
and that's where my initial problem began.
Uh-huh.
She was 7 minutes older.
7 minutes.
Oh, yes.
And she's always acted like the older sister, has she, the boss?
Oh, totally. And to make a long story short, through the practices with you and other teachers, mainly you, I have had to change my mind
There you go.
because it was my problem.
That's
It
right.
was not her problem.
That's right.
And it's been so helpful.
Good.
I had to pop in because the main thing that I am the most important thing to myself in the world. And
Yeah.
just because she's 7 minutes older.
7
Wow.
minutes. I love it.
And so it's been
So that means she's what, 95 years less 7 minutes older than you, is she? Well, how old are you now, Betty?
92 in July.
So she's 92 years older, less 7 minutes.
Yes.
That's hilarious. So for 92
she's older.
years,
So
she's-
anyway, the practice that you brought up today is
yes.
so important, and it has changed my life.
Well on you, Betty. Well done, darling.
So
She's still alive like you. She's still
oh
90.
yes, oh
She's
yes,
still alive.
pretty
You see-
healthy.
And you
But
see
I have changed my mind. We don't
Yeah.
communicate that much, but
Okay.
when we do, I let her talk and I listen.
Good. Well done. Well done, Betty. Thank you
I
for that.
finally got to see you in New York.
What, sweetheart?
I'm finally seeing you in New York.
Good. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Good, darling. Bye. Thanks, Betty, sweetheart. So what else, people? This is day-to-day stuff. This is everybody's life. Everybody has a variation of this, you know. That's why I just love that saying, be your own person. It's so, I mean, it's utterly profound, because this is a way of describing how it's like, because of ego grasping, the root delusion that posits a separate me in the first place, and then because of this massive emotional hunger and attachment and dissatisfaction, it's like we're all fractured people. We're kind of fractured. We're all like little broken little people who don't feel we're worthy, do not assume, and just assume that we don't exist and aren't valid until someone says we are, which is why we're shattered when they don't approve of us. This is why literally we suffer, people. It's incredible. So it's a powerful practice. The biggest one, like Sophie was saying, compassion, all that, yes. But the first one is, I am not what people think I am. I am not. But we totally so believe that, you know. But so that's why when a person adores us and loves us, let's say Christoph's kind to Sophia, adores Sophia, we, because attachment in that case is getting what it wants, we then cling to that person and keep hoping they'll say lovely words, because we don't know how to say lovely words about ourselves. That's when it's so powerful. When we become our own person, then we can really have practice of love and compassion to others, you know. Yes, Alona.
Hi, Minerva.
Yes, sweetheart.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
I was thinking about anger, and when I get criticized at work, I get angry, but I zip my mouth, like I don't argue much. But then when I unpack what's going on,
Yeah.
I can see that that's the story about me that I come up with, and my boss doesn't, like when I criticize, doesn't match my story, but that's a story, like when I come, it's not, I can see that it just, I make all the stories, and when they don't match with other people's opinions, I get angry or frustrated, but it's like, it's a made up story. So the thing is, sometimes I feel I have a crazy mind or something, like, which I believe in those concepts, the stories that are made. And then, I feel like my mind is sick, sometimes.
That's right. No, that's how we are, really. It's a way of putting it. So that's where we have to, you see, this is where we have to, one way they describe all of practice is in terms of learning to distinguish between all the different thoughts in our mind. There are the valid thoughts, the kind ones, loving, compassionate, wise. They're thoughts also, but the way they would put that, they're relatively reasonable assessments of something. Then you've got attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, low self-esteem. They're unreasonable stories. So we've got to chuck out not all the stories, keep the valid stories, if you like, and then learn to not believe the extreme negative stories. And this is a really powerful way of saying what practice is. So, you know, we have to learn to hear our thoughts really clearly and then grow the positive ones. You understand? So yes, Alona, you're doing the job.
Yes.
Well done. Thank you, sweetheart.
And can I
Yes, go on. Yeah, go on.
We were talking about pride, not now, but before your teachings about pride, and then how the flip side of low self-esteem.
Yes.
And then I have observed that in me, and you know what I have discovered, that voice of the pride is not just I'm not good enough, you know, but that's voice telling you never will be good enough. That's the most painful, because I when I unpacked it, what is it actually telling me?
Yes.
I came to the bottom of it, and that's the ignorance, right? That's the ego. That's where it's all coming from.
I think that one, let's just analyze that one. So the one, I am not enough, I'm not good enough, that's the low self-esteem, which is in a way the flip side of, well, I should be good enough, you know, no, I'm not good enough. That's exaggerating. And then because we grasp at everything as permanent, we grasp at everything as unchanging. So then you say, and I will never be good enough. That's grasping at things as permanent. That's another delusion. Do you understand?
Yes.
And it's not the same way when if something lovely is happening. I always use that example of Nicole Kidman when she was with Tom Cruise. And I would never say this to be mean because she's such a great example. She said, because everything was going beautifully, everything was beautiful. And she said, we will be together until we are 80. So what that is everything's going lovely. You then believe that will last forever. And then when you're down, you believe that will last forever too. They're both mistaken. So there's the low self-esteem and attachment, and then believing it'll never change. And that's the killer, because then that's when we kill ourselves, you know, because we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So if you can see it's not permanent, it is impermanent, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and you get courage from that. It's a very powerful point. You understand, Alona?
Yes. When I felt that, when I come down to that concept, to that thing, that I've heard this little voice, I think because of the practice, that, but that's not true. You know, like
I'm losing you now. Which one isn't true?
That I'm never going to be good enough.
Oh, so you said it. So that's good. So you argued with it. That's good. Well, that was your fault. So practice it consciously. That's good. Exactly. It's not true. Exactly right. Perfect. So you did it well, right?
Yeah, I didn't expect to find this, but because I'm working on my mind, and I like to unpack all these concept stories, and especially when negative ones, the most painful ones. So discover things, and then, but because of practice, I do have a positive voice as well, not very strong.
And you got to grow it. You got to grow it consciously. Don't just wait for it to come. Actively say it. That's a big point to put, Alona. Do you hear me? Don't just wait for the good ones to come. Actively have the good one. Put it in your mind. This is what we forget to do. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. Very good. Fantastic. Thank you, darling. What else, people? Sheila had a question. Didn't you have a question, Sheila? What is it, sweetheart?
Yes, hi, Venerable. Thank you.
Good.
So all this is very relevant because some of it you know, but so you know, I had this incident with my sister where I just collapsed in tears, became a big puddle, and then it followed with another incident where I fought back. I just sent her a really nasty email, but then I thought about it, and I realized, oh, this is my anger. This is aversion rising, and this is my attachment to wanting something else. But then this voice came up and said, "Yeah, you're right. I mean, I just didn't want to let go." And I just stuck there, even though I knew I was in this place and I didn't know what would you suggest to?
Okay, so this is where I think it's really important, Sheila, and that was a bit the way I was talking before to the other gentleman, too young. We've got to be able to distinguish in the other person their attachment, their anger, their rubbish. You've got to see that, and that's true with your sister. You can there's one is your need for her to approve of you, one is your hurt, one is your anger, but also you've got to be able to have enough wisdom to see where she's coming from, and so you can be right that she was mean, and even you could argue it might be useful to sometimes point it out. But the trouble is when you do it out of anger, then it's a mess. So it's nothing. Sometimes it is appropriate to lay the line. Well, excuse me, what you just said was completely inappropriate, and I don't want to put up with that anymore. That can be very good but it's got to come in you from a place of genuinely caring about your sister, not just self-centeredness and anger, because then it won't work. That's very courageous. So that you're right in what you're seeing. She is mean to you. She is unkind. She does misuse you. You are right about that. But then there's your need for her not to be, and your anger when she is. That's your part of it. But it's still not. It's still okay to see their problems, but not. Do you see my point? And sometimes it is appropriate to say something. And if you have never done that all your life, you've always been just allowing her to run over you. Sometimes for your sake and for hers, it's very good to say something, but not from anger. That's the difference. You see my point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I mean, I really haven't looked at it all from her side.
No, I know, but this is like in our, you and me, you know what I'm talking about. In the other discussion, where there's other person in your life that we're always talking about, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Having the courage to stand up for their sake as much as your own and say something. That takes a lot of courage, especially if you've allowed yourself to be quiet and, and looking like patient, but also being passive. Do you understand me, Sheila?
Oh, yeah, I hear you. Yes, thank you.
Good, darling. Good. Well done. Okay, what else, people? This is a very helpful discussion. So helpful. Someone else? Any old question on another topic altogether, whatever you like. Hello, then. Yes, Sue Young again. Good. Talk to us.
Reverend, thank you. So on another topic, I have a friend who I love dearly, and I obviously have a lot of attachment to him, but I also realized that I'm tremendously jealous and resentful because he's someone that I think has tremendously good karma. Like 3 years ago, he was struggling and all sorts. He was not in a great shape, and now everything's going wonderful for him. And I realized that I love him, but I'm also very jealous and resentful, because I want what he has.
I see.
And that's a very difficult realization for me.
Yes. Is it creating an obstacle in your relationship, or is it all just quietly in yourself?
No, yeah, it's mostly that okay, so one of the ways that our so as I said, I love him tremendously, and so one of the ways my attachment shows up is that we play a lot. We're very playful. And so I hit him, like I hit him with wrestle, and I realized that the way I'm joking by hitting him, and so part of it is because I miss him, but part of it is also because I'm jealous.
Well, I understand. So okay, so then I think this is it. Now let's look at jealousy. I think it's very fascinating. It's a really good point, Sue Young. So jealousy, the way they talk about it in Buddhist psychology, of course, it comes from attachment, but it's got a particular. And you're indicating this by the second word, resentment. It's got an energy of anger, like how dare he be happy? It should be me, sort of thing. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
It's sort of like I want what he has, and
what he has. Yeah, exactly. So the antidote, the direct antidote, the only antidote, Sue Young, quietly in your own practice, is to be happy for him. Say the words to yourself quietly. You don't have to say it to him, but just counteract it. It doesn't work immediately. You won't suddenly feel all blissful, but you've got to counteract it. Just go, I am so happy for him. He must have the karma to have this good things happen. I'm so pleased for him. Rejoice for him. Rejoicing in someone else's happiness anyway, and don't undermine this, is a really excellent technique to calm your mind down and make you be happy. It's a really powerful one. So every time you hear it, try not hear it, feel the hurt, but then be really happy for him. That's one thing. But the other thing is, it's got an aspect to me of a bit like low self-esteem. In other words, that what you are isn't enough. That has to have that aspect as well. Would you agree with that?
It's a little bit like how dare him have it so easy and everything so hard for me. That's
okay. So that's that's definitely anger.
Yeah, and jealousy and resentment.
So the anger gives rise to the jealousy, and the anger comes from attachment. So it's a mixture of all of those. You're right. So you can hear it very clearly. This is what I'm hearing about you, Su Young. You're very clear about your mind. You can see the problem, and that's 99% of the effort. If you can see it and hear the words, then you counteract and quietly, just say the words, I'm really happy for him. And then I think it's also important to look at yourself and know that really you are doing a good job. You're a very good person. You've got a wise mind. Your life probably is quite going well. You might have to work hard, but you also rejoice in your own good qualities. I think this is very, very, very necessary. And that'll calm you down and make you be more content with what you've got, because jealousy always sees everybody else as happy and I'm nothing. And that's just not true. It's not true. So rejoice in him, rejoice in yourself, and as well as and counteract the thoughts. I mean, you're very clear. You hear it very clearly. And that's 90% of the battle. I mean, if we can't even see our problems and hear the thoughts, that's the big problem. And you can. So I rejoice in that, Su Young. Okay.
Thank you.
Well done. What else, people? Nobody? Anybody? Huh? Yes. Talk to me, Sam.
Hi, Venerable Robina, everybody.
Yes.
So I had a teacher a while ago say that, teaching very clearly, of just contemplate the thought of what if you never needed approval from anyone ever again for the rest of your life. And I could feel into it. I thought, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yes.
I want that. Like, I get the sort of like delicious freedom of that. And so then the next thought is very weird. I'm like, well, will I just never be in a relationship with human beings again?
That's an interesting point, because what you just did was chuck the baby out with the bathwater. Because the thing is, when you don't need approval, you're not hungry for it. When you do get it, it'll just enrich your heart. You'll use it. It's not as if you'll push it away and hope people never say it. Once you've given up attachment and the hunger and the neediness to hear approval, then when you will feel more content in yourself. And then when people do love you and do approve of you, you'll be able to use it in a healthy way to nourish your own heart and grow yourself. So right now, there's the attachment in us, the neediness, the little girl in there hungry to hear good words. You hear good words, and then you kind of, it temporarily feeds the attachment. It doesn't last long, because then you want to hear the words again. Whereas if you don't hungrily need it, you practice that, then when your friend does tell you they love you, you are delighted to be loved, and you use it to nourish yourself and become even more happy and more fulfilled. So you don't push it away. Then you're able to use it more wisely. So if you have a healthy relationship, that's how it would be. You can adore each other in a relationship and love each other and approve each other. And you must, if you're showing love to somebody, you would be approving of them. You're such a good person. I'm so grateful. You are so kind. We need to say that to each other, coming from a healthy place. Then each of you uses it to nourish your own goodness. Whereas if it's only attachment, you become like little vampires, and just horrible. So it's got to be the better part of ourselves that hears it, and we can use it to become even more marvelous. Because praising a person and loving a person and thanking a person is an incredible quality. We need to do that, and we need to hear it both, but not from an attachment perspective. So don't be scared of it.
Great, thank you.
That's my point. Don't chuck the baby out the bathwater. That's a good point. Thank you, Sam. Hello, Fernando. Talk to me.
Hello, Venerable Robina.
Happy to see
I
you.
have a question in relation to reputation. In the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas, from the 14 to the 17, I guess, it speaks about our problem with trying to, or our attachment to that reputation, but then also in the path of the Bodhisattva, it speaks about having a good or trying to maintain a good reputation in order to work for sentient beings. How do you deal with that?
Exactly. I understand you. And this is exactly the point I was saying to Sam, that if attachment is like a little greedy little boy in there, hungry to be approved of every minute, and then you're so inauthentic, and then you change your behavior to make people like you, you go crazy this way. That's impossible. That must we give up. But the other one, if you are trying to be useful to people on this planet, I mean, forget bodhisattva. If if you're working in a shop, and you own the shop, you want customers. So obviously you want people to like you, and you must be so kind to them and so loving, so they'll all adore you and keep coming back into your shop. That's completely logical. But if it's only attachment, that's when it's a problem. That's the difference. Do you understand? We need a good reputation. If you don't have, I mean, if the Dalai Lama, look at him, if nobody liked him, what good can he be to the planet? So he has to have a good reputation. So it's really, but it's got to not be from attachment. We've got to do it for the sake of others. That's why we've got to have good behavior and be nice to other people, so they will like us, and then they will listen to your words. It's really, or they'll buy your cakes, it's logical. You get my point?
Yes,
but
thank you.
Like all of these things, we have to be able to distinguish the difference in our own mind. That's the skill. That's the practice. Yeah?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. What else, people? I think we've said it's not time to go. I know it's not. I'm not trying to cheat you, but I think we've had enough. I think we've said enough. We've really touched on this, and it's so powerful, this topic. I think the things every one of you have asked have been so good, so helpful, and really rich, delicious food for thought. I think I really do. Did you want to say something, Alex? No? No, okay. I'm feeling, why don't we just do a 5-minute meditation and we can finish? So just relax, sit up straight. Just relax your mind. Think it's very natural. Just look at our minds for 5 minutes. We'll try and get in touch with the clarity of our minds. And don't worry too much what that means. So just sit up straight, close your eyes, and then just with determination for 5 or 4 minutes, say to yourself, just think, I am going to pay attention to my mind. And what that means is I'm going to sort of have a feeling of stepping back, just feel that. And then you're going to pay attention to whatever pops up in your mind. So it feels a bit weird initially, like as if nothing's there. Don't worry about it. Just simply pay firm attention to whatever arises in your mind, and just let it come and let the thoughts go. Let the thoughts come and let the thoughts go. But keep this alertness, keep this pay attention. Don't wander off. Like 4 or 5 minutes, strong determination. I will pay attention to my thoughts. Don't space out. Don't kind of wander off. So stay alert, very sharp, but relaxed as well. Just watch the thoughts. Don't involve in them. No opinions. Don't join the thoughts. Just like stay separate. Have a feeling like that. Just watch. Okay, that's enough. 4 minutes. I mean, 4 minutes is like nothing, but look how valuable it can be if we make an effort just to consciously decide, just to sort of let the thoughts come and go, not buying into them, not swimming in them, not sinking in them, not being them, It's a really nice little exercise. Kind of calm yourself down. Let the thoughts be crazy, but it doesn't matter. Don't buy into them. So we just think for this 45 minutes, hour and 40 minutes we've been together, hour and 20 minutes, whatever it is. How happy. We are so pleased. All this analysis we've done, this thinking, this looking at our minds, which is so, so special. So delight. Everybody, please rejoice how amazing it is that we're doing this job. This is really the essence of practice. If you've got a Buddhist practice, the reason you do all the other things is to help you do this job. This is the heart of it. To know your mind, to distinguish between the rubbish and the goodness, and to change the mind. This is amazing. So be delighted. So never give up. That's it. Never give up. Keep moving, keep practicing one step at a time. See you in person again very soon. I'm in Portland right now in Oregon. So I'll be back in New York soon. So I'll come to the center very soon. Thank you, everybody. Much love. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.